Amy, can you hear me?
We're the only ones in here?
I just wasn't sure. I didn't know if my audio, it said, but it was connecting to audio, so I didn't know if it was working or not. Hi, Carson.
Good to see you all. Do I have all the board members here? Let me check.
Need Adolfo.
And John.
There's John.
There he is. Okay, there's John. Okay. I do not see Adolfo yet.
Let's see if I can see him in the participant. Maybe he's hiding.
Okay.
Nope. Oh, there he is.
Okay, good. All right, and I'm hoping I received the email. Okay, good. I needed an email. Oh.
President Marks, just so
Yes.
you know, we also have Paula Valbuena Leon on the Zoom meeting right now so that she can read the Spanish translation that she normally does, just so you know.
Okay, perfect. That sounds good. Thank you. That's awesome. All right. Well, I will call this meeting to order. This is the 1451st regular board meeting held on September 8th, 2020. And now I want to report out from closed session. Hold on. Let's see. Oh, it's not attached. So I do not have the actual what I'm supposed to report out. So I will say, I'm not sure what I can say. So Mr. Henderson, can you help me out here? Since I do not have the email from Mr. Munoz on.
Let's see, is Mr. Henderson here? There he is.
On there.
I'm looking to access it myself. Give me just a moment.
Okay, there's no attachment on mine, so I would be reporting that if I could see the if there was an attachment.
I got it right here.
You could say we need to add that in closed session the board gave direction to legal counsel, and then with regard to the resolution.
Okay, I can. All right. So we gave direction to legal counsel in regarding resolution number 20/21-06.
Yes, and also if you gave direction regarding negotiations.
We gave direction to council to continue on with negotiations that we had discussed in closed session. Is that?
On the resolution, I have that information. Would you like me to state it or just?
You can state it. I'm going to have you state it since I do not have it.
Sure, that the board approved a resolution to initiate disciplinary action against the permanent certificated employee. And the vote was, I believe, unanimous.
Yes.
To approve the resolution. And the board directed staff to notify the employee.
Okay.
And there was no other reportable action taken.
Okay. Thank you. That's great. Thank you, Mr. Henderson. All right. So we're doing things differently because we are on Zoom tonight instead of our normal Teams. And so you will see something different on the internet than we usually have. So I just wanted to let you know. We've had some technical problems with Teams today and our staff has worked extra hard to adapt to this new format tonight. So I appreciate all of you and the work that went into today to make tonight happen rather than postponing our meeting. So appreciate that. And now I would, let's see, I'm going on to my next item. We will do a roll call vote I can see you, but I'd like you to also say that you are engaged in this meeting with us, and we'd like to see all the board members if your camera works. So, student rep, we'll start with the student rep. We can see him, Carranza. Yep, he's here. Trustee Brown.
I am here.
Trustee Brown, Trustee Irvin. Yep, we see you, Trustee Irvin. Trustee Lopez. I still don't. There he is. All right, you popped up. Good. Trustee Newman and Trustee West.
Here.
Vice President West and President Marks. So we are all on. And then now I'd like to refer anybody who needs a translator services to Ms. Paula Valbuena, who is on this virtual conference. Ms. Valbuena, please go ahead.
Thank you, President Marks. Buenas tardes. Habla Paula Valbuena. Si necesita servicios de interpretación al español, por favor llame al 1805-324-7680 e ingrese el código de acceso 227-204-257, seguido de la tecla numeral. Este es un número totalmente gratis. Nuevamente llame al número de teléfono 1805-324-7680 e ingrese el código de acceso 227-204-257, seguido de la tecla numeral. También puede acceder a estas instrucciones en nuestro sitio web mcs4kids.com, dirigiéndose a la parte inferior de la pantalla en Click Links y haciendo clic en Board Agendas para ir a la agenda de esta noche. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we're moving on to our moment of silence. So will you please join me in our moment of silence? Thank you. And now, to say good evening again tonight, this open session meeting of the Board of Trustees is being live streamed at the direction of the board, and I'm believing we're still going live stream tonight. The live stream is available on the district's website, and the recordings will be available for viewing the day after the board meeting. Modesto City Schools board meetings are closed to the public to follow state guidelines on social distancing. This action was taken in response to the governor's executive order N2520 and Resolution 19/20-17 delegating authority to take necessary action to protect students and staff from the spread of coronavirus, also known as COVID-19, adopted by Modesto City Schools on March 18th, 2020. Regarding public comment, Modesto City Schools has provided an opportunity for the public to provide comment. It is outlined on the agenda. The public has been given an opportunity to call in and leave a voicemail or send us a comment via an email address. This practice will continue throughout the time we are conducting virtual meetings. For members of the public that are interested in commenting in the future, we welcome your comments. And we are pleased to welcome a student from Franklin Elementary School to lead us in the flag salute tonight via video. So Jayona Briggs, fourth grader, Jayona is a very bright, hardworking, and inquisitive student. She is doing very well in distance learning and is friendly and helpful to her teacher and classmates. Jayona has also received Student of the Month almost every year she has attended. She is a member of the school chorus and in her free time joins drawing cartoon characters and enjoys that and playing basketball. After college, she would like to work for a company like Pixar where she can use her drawing talent. So now, Jayona, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And I believe, there we go.
Hi, my name is Jayona Briggs. I go to Franklin Elementary and I am in the 4th grade. Now, will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Right hand over your chest. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that we had a student. It's always great to see their faces, even if we can't actually see them in person in the board meeting. So I thank you for that. Thank you for all that went into to make that possible for her to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And now I will turn it over to Dr. Noguchi for the welcome and announcements.
Wonderful, thank you. And thank you for everyone that's tuning in tonight. I recognize tonight is a little different than what we're used to, but you know, one thing that I've learned about this COVID-19 experience is that you never really know how your day is going to play out. So you guys, thank you all for pivoting, and hats off to technology and communications for doing their best to help navigate today. So today I am very excited about a number of presentations that is on the agenda for this evening. However, we are going to move some of the items off because in planning for tonight, at 4 o'clock, we discovered that we weren't able to be in teams that we're used to. So we did make some modifications, but we will be coming back with these presentations at the next board meeting, the next regular board meeting, because the special board meeting I'll talk about in just a minute is going to be around opening schools. But we are going to share today a social emotional presentation. It really goes over the social emotional survey from our kids that took it, grades 4th through 12th grade. We had over 15,000 students participate in this survey, so we're very excited at this, at the results, and also really the work that we can do as a result of the feedback that we got. But before we get into the presentations today, I do want to take a few minutes and talk about our technology issues today, and also our opening schools planning timeline. I first off want to say thank you very much for your patience and understanding with technology today. There were a number of factors that went into really the very challenging day. The first one was an incident that involved external parties trying to come in and gain access to our server. So people from outside the district coming in and trying to take control of our server. As a result, this caused our network to go down. It got very slow and then ultimately went down. So we turned it off, and Russ and his team worked their magic, and we were back up by about 10:30. At 11:30, unfortunately, there was another issue that was beyond our control. It was a result of a fire that happened between our broadband lines. The broadband is how we get our internet, and some trees. So fire came and got into that broadband. So our carrier, which is Wave, that's our carrier for broadband, they, as we speak, are working diligently to get those up and running for hopefully tomorrow, and hopefully we can get that restored. Just when we thought that was done, and that was about 3 o'clock, at 4 o'clock, we learned that Microsoft globally, so worldwide, Microsoft went down, which meant we needed to pivot for tonight's board meeting. And we really found that out at 10 minutes to 4 today, and board meeting started at 5. So that's then I called President Marks and we worked to pivot this particular meeting. So I say all that because, one, I want to thank everyone involved. I want to really thank staff for their patience and their diligence and their true grit. I didn't hear a single complaint today. We made some offhanded comments on what next is going to happen, but I really appreciate everyone's willingness to dig in, to stay positive, to have a growth mindset, and just to continue and forge forward. So thank you for that. In the meantime, I do also want to talk about our opening schools plan. I do know that there are a lot of parents and staff and students very eager to hear about information on opening schools. As you know, we shared last week that we were going to post our plan today, along with a survey for parents and staff and students to be able to complete. We couldn't do that because we don't have access to internet because it's all down. But as soon as humanly possible, we will get that survey up and running. The purpose for that survey and the purpose for a near future, we're going to be having a community forum, is to get as much information to the board as we can around parents' wishes, students' wishes, staff wishes around opening schools. We will bring all that information to you October 12th. And have you have an opportunity to give us feedback and some input and certainly some guidance as we move forward. So that is just right around the corner. We are going to ask to get feedback from not only our TK6, which was our original plan, but we're also going to be asked to get some feedback on our 7 to 12 format as well. Recognizing we are going to be recommending and committed to opening our TK6 first and ensuring that we get that up and running successfully, and then moving to the subsequent grade levels as well. So with that, again, I want to thank you guys all for your patience and understanding. We actually probably will have a pretty short board meeting tonight, but we're getting it done. And again, thanks staff and also the community for all their patience. I recognize that this is it's a difficult time for all of us, and we just want to get schools back up and running, and we want to get back in the boardroom. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to President Marks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Noguchi. And now we will move on to the Board of Education members report, A6. So I have trustee, do I have any trustees? Let's see, that have something to share. Trustee Irvin. I need you to unmute. You need to unmute.
Yes, last Monday I attended the first Equity Task Force meeting of the inaugural Equity Task Force of the district, and really enjoyed the feedback and the amount of community members, teachers, and community folks that are involved in our new task force, and looking forward to working long term with all the stakeholders.
Thank you. Thank you, Trustee Irvin. Do I have any other board members? Trustee Lopez, and then Charlie, and then Trustee West.
Trustee West was first, so
I didn't see her. Okay, Trustee West. All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Trustee Lopez. I would like to report that 2 students from Modesto High School contacted me about 2 weeks ago. Ivan and Stephanie from Modesto High School. They wanted to share with me some things that they wanted to implement on their campus concerning Brown issues, and they wanted to kind of tell me a little bit about what that was and why it was important to them to implement this on their campus. And I have to say, I was super impressed with these 2 young people. They were articulate, they were passionate about what they wanted to do, and they had done a lot of research and a lot of the background work that needed to happen, and they were looking for an advisor that might be an advisor to this club that they want to start on campus. I think it's a really important topic right now, and I think it's a really good thing to have on our campuses, not just Modesto High School, but my hope is maybe other high schools have students that want to take the lead on this. They also had looped in with our Zoom meeting someone from Sacramento who works with clubs like this around the state. And so I was impressed with all of them. And it wasn't until about halfway through our meeting that I realized that Ivan was actually our own Trustee Lopez's younger brother. And so I guess it runs in the family, which was great. And I think one of the things that impressed me is that during COVID and during these difficult times, so many of us just want to sit back and kind of coast and do status quo. And these 2 young people can't even be on campus, and yet they're looking for ways to improve their campus and improve their community. And I think they're kind of an inspiration to all of us. So I was really impressed with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Trustee Lopez.
Well, thank you for those words, Trustee West. I was also outreached in a more persuasive way to be a part of that interview, which I gladly accepted. And yes, they're very articulate, very spot on in their questions, wanting to know more about our district. It was very, for many reasons, it was very important and very special to me to be a part and sit down with students and just talk about the work that we do. And it's impressive to see young students at a young age wanting to be a part of the change, right? And we've seen this throughout the last couple of months, an array of issues, right? And especially with the Equity Task Force, I think it's important that they're a part of the conversation. Speaking of the Equity Task Force, I was also a part of the group. It was really nice to see a diverse group of individuals being able to share stories, share commonalities, and just overall see the desire to work on issues that are important to us. So it's been a nice, refreshing couple of weeks. And if I may add, I know there's a lot. If maybe you're keeping up with the news, you'll see that there's a back and forth on when the census are due. But I just want to take a moment and say it's important. It helps bring a lot of funding into our communities. It takes 15 minutes to be a part of it, and it shapes our neighborhoods and our community for the next 10 years. So if you haven't done so already, please take part in the census.
Awesome. Thank you. Yes. I appreciate that. And I had an opportunity to attend also the Equity and Justice Task Force meeting, which was well run. Appreciated all the questions and the breakouts to the smaller groups as well, so for those deeper discussions. And so I appreciate that and all that's gone into putting that together. And then I also attended the Clergy Council meeting, though I was on a trip and driving. I was still able to listen to it on my phone, but I know Dr. Noguchi and I believe it was Ms. Noonan were also in that meeting. And so I appreciate the time and the discussion. And it was nice that they are doing that, because I know we haven't had any meetings, or the Clergy Council hasn't met for quite a while because of I think technology and COVID issues. So it's nice to be back with them and meeting again. So I know they're planning another meeting next month. So thank you all. Did I miss anybody? I didn't see any other hands. Did I miss anybody? No? Okay. So we'll move on. Thank you for your reports, all the board members. I appreciate hearing what's happening out there and what we need to be doing and active in. So thank you for sharing what you're doing in this, even the students you're meeting with. So that's awesome. And now we are going to go to, I believe we are not doing any recognitions. Is that correct? Did I hear that correctly? Are we doing any recognition, Dr.?
We talked about not doing that, but I just was texting Krista and she says that she is able to do the recognition. So I think that we're able to do that.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, thank you. All right, so Ms.
Well,
Noonan.
it's going to be an experiment because I've never shared my screen in Zoom before. So let's see what gets shared. So okay. I will give it a shot. I have it queued up. Oh, look how easy it is. It's right there. See my screen okay?
Yes.
Great. All right. Let me make sure you can still see it. Can you still see it?
Yes.
Nice. All right. We are having successes. This is great. Okay, so thank you for the time to do recognitions this evening. So our first up, our character education recipient is from Shackelford Elementary School, and it's fourth grader Yerlin Martinez, and she's being recognized for the character trait of initiative. Teacher Joe Tornberg nominated Yerlin and shared, "I am selecting Yerlin Martinez because she is kind, respectful, and caring to her peers. Most importantly, she will take the initiative to help her teacher and friends when they are all facing technology problems. She will immediately attempt to troubleshoot the problem on her own, inform me of a solution, and lead the class towards a resolution. Yerlin has even produced step-by-step screenshots to further assist her classmates. This level of initiative is impressive for a fourth grade scholar." So congratulations, Yerlin. Thank you for all your help. And it's definitely one thing we've learned with technology is it's a team effort. So we definitely appreciate your help. And this is a photo with her and her whole family.
Great.
Next, we have our MCS hero. And this month we are celebrating Wilson Elementary School teacher Angela Cowell. Wilson Yard Duty Supervisor and parent Lucille Adams nominated Angela and shared the following. "Angela is doing an absolutely amazing job at keeping children engaged in distance learning and getting everyone through this tough time." And I actually have a really nice photo that I'm going to share too This is her with her family. She is making sure mental and physical health are good with exercise and breathing techniques for her students. She is also checking to be sure each child understands the lesson that is being taught and making sure each child is present and ready to learn via video conferencing. Angela also reaches out to parents to be sure they are aware of upcoming events via Class Dojo and email. And she is doing all this while taking care of her own child and even working weekends to ensure every child succeeds and grows to their highest potential. So that's amazing, Angela. Your kids are lucky to have you. So thank you for your dedication. And finally, we have a very exciting recognition. Tonight, our special recognition goes to Bayer teacher Steve Idlegeorge for receiving a 2020 Yale Educator Award. Mr. Idlegeorge is one of 81 teachers and counselors from around the world being recognized with this honor. The Yale Educator Recognition Program honors educators who support and inspire their students to achieve at high levels. Yale invites matriculating students to nominate a high school educator for the award. This year, 317 nominees represented 41 states and 19 countries. And again, there were 81 recipients. Bayer graduate and new Yale student Jack Litke nominated Mr. Idlegeorge for the award, and he shared, each morning, walking into his classroom was like entering a completely different world. There, at the head of the classroom, Mr. Idlegeorge would sit with a coffee in hand, quietly discussing his readings. His soft voice would command the entire room's attention, which certainly is no easy feat. For everything he said conveyed his intelligence and especially concerning the vicissitudes of life and wisdom. He opened our minds. With his help, we read more critically, read more broadly, and read more thoughtfully. Bayer Principal Dan Park said, Mr. Idlegeorge is committed to the craft of teaching and being an educator. He has a passion for his students to love and appreciate the English language and literature of all cultures. He is a professional teacher with a passion for student success and growth. So congratulations to our recognition recipients this evening, and thank you for allowing me to experiment with Zoom and to share this.
You did a great job. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
President Marks, may I just add something to that?
Yes.
Last one. I just want to say my son and his wife were high school sweethearts at Bayer, and they both had Mr. Idlegeorge as an instructor. And I remember back then, every day they would come home with great stories to say about Mr. Idlegeorge. He just inspired them. My daughter-in-law was actually a TA for him. And she now is studying to become an English teacher because he kind of influenced her to go into that field. And so, by the way, she said to tell him that Vanna said hello. I think it's an inside joke. I don't know what that means, but I just want to thank Mr. Idlegeorge and for all of our teachers who inspire kids every day.
That's awesome. Well, thank you. That was a nice story to tell and share about him. For me, I was just happy to see. I love driving by the school and seeing all the new paint. It's like, wow. And just seeing it because it reminded me while he was receiving that award. That was really cool. So thank you. Yes, we have awesome people in our district, and it's great to hear more about some real stories about them through this time of recognition, and students too. Now we will move on to item A8, approval of the consent agenda. And Ms. Newman, are there any, or I'm not sure if Ms. Chambers is going to be reading this. Are there any comments from the public on the consent agenda?
No, there are no comments on the consent agenda. All of the comments will be in the public presentation period. Okay,
thank you. So now I will move to a motion to approve the consent agenda. So I have a motion by a trustee. Motion by trustee Newman, seconded by trustee Lopez. All right, now because this is a new format, I don't know if I could, it's hard to see you anyway. So we'll try it this way. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please raise your hand. Okay, so passes. Wait, I only see 5. Okay, 6. There's Mr. Irvin. Okay, so students approve of the consent agenda, and so does Trustee Irvin. Okay, so it passes 6-0, with students also approving. And now we will go to our A9, approval of the order of discussion action items. So we have had a discussion and determined that because we had so many technical difficulties today, to rearrange some things and move them to another evening. And so because we want to ensure that we have a rich discussion. And so we're moving items B4, B5, B6, and B7 to a future meeting. So the superintendent is shaking her head. Yes, that's what we had discussed. So Trustee Brown has a question, and then Trustee Newman.
For the interest of those of us that can't see an agenda right now, we need to know which items those are, please.
Okay, I will read them off. Okay, just a moment, and I will read them. Hold on, let me get them on this. Yes, that is helpful. Okay, item B4, approval of the resolution. This is the one for the Modesto City Schools Board of Education resolution in support of equity and racial justice. So this was the resolution. Then B5 was a report on work completed to support the equity and racial justice framework. And then B6 is the report on student social emotional support survey. And B7 was approval of first reading proposed revision of board policy BP 5141.52 on suicide prevention. So those were the 4 that we were moving. Yes, Trustee Newman.
With regard to B7, the suicide prevention policy, I don't think this is the first time that we've looked at it. It's a slight revision that was necessitated by the program review. If it's possible to proceed with that tonight, I do think it's timely. And I know that we were recommended to proceed with that based on the program review. And we've looked at it a couple times. And so if we could keep that on agenda, if there's still a staff person around, I don't want to inconvenience anybody, but if we could, my recommendation would be to do that.
So let me explain, and then I'll ask Mr. Herbst if he's able. So really what happened is all of this came down at 4 o'clock today, and I needed to get all of you guys on Zoom. And so to get you all plus cabinet plus all extended cabinet, that's really, we were just trying to, triage this. So I did pull that one off, and I do not believe we have the presentation or Mark, are you able to do this one now that we told Danielle that we were doing it?
Yeah, I don't have the document in front of me. I think I could probably make arrangements to get the document. We could go either way, to be honest with you, whatever the board decides.
So let's do this. Since it's the last one, why don't you go offline right now and see if you can get the document, because there were just a few changes, because Trustee Newman is correct. We did update this board policy. Oh gosh, I think it was in February of last year. So most of that work was done. We just have to add a couple new ed codes in there. So if you could see if you can get it, let's approve it with that included in the presentation. However, if we get to the end and we weren't able to get that presentation, then we can move it to the next board meeting. Will that work, President Marks?
Yes, that sounds fine. I know that when we were working on the agenda this last week before all of this happened, I wanted to ensure that we had the ability to see the screen, to be able to edit on screen, and would have that here on Teams was what we were working with before. And now since it has changed a completely new format, that might not be as easily done as it was before. So that's why we thought maybe this might be one that we would not be able to do, because we cannot adapt to the new format with that short notice that we had today. So that's why we had talked about moving it. All right, so I'll take a motion to approve the discussion action items with including item B7, if it is possible to do that tonight and make the edits that we were discussing, if we need to make any edits to it. So do I have a motion to approve that? So Charlene makes a motion, Trustee West, and then Trustee Brown makes a second. All those in favor of the discussion action item, the order of discussion action item, please raise your hand. Okay, and say aye. Do I have trustee Lopez? Yes. Okay, so it looks like all 6 of us and student trustee Carranza. So thank you so much. So that one passes, and now we will move on to our next item, which is the period for public comment. So, and I will ask to have Ms. Chambers please read the public comment, because I know that there are a few to read. So now, there she is.
Hi. We have several public comments. Our first comment comes from Deborah Krebs. This is a follow-up from a comment that she made on our last board meeting on September 8th regarding the process to reopen elementary schools for in-person instruction. And Ms. Crump says, the focus should be only for those that are vulnerable, like elderly teachers. Provide what they need to stay safe, mask, and maybe shield area from which they teach. Number 2, do not require students to wear masks and social distance. The past 6 months has shown that very few children become ill from COVID. Children need socialization. And 3, if you do not put an end to the restrictions imposed now, then you will feel pressured to continue restrictions when flu season starts. Our next comment is from Jeff Phillips. He's a parent. Dear school board, please know that I'm a parent of 4 kids at the Modesto City Schools and hope that you, as our representatives, know that as parents, we're having an extremely difficult time educating kids at home. We hope that you are working to get school back to in-person as soon as possible. I know this is a common feeling amongst parents, as all in our social circles are saying the same thing. But because of your closed meetings, we're not allowed to attend to hear the urgency in our voices about this topic. Please stand up for our kids and their education. Thanks for your service, Jeff Phillips. Our next comment is from Carol Phillips, a grandparent and community member. To whom it may concern, I am very discouraged by what is going on with the idea of distance learning. I have 6 grandchildren in Modesto City Schools, ages 7 through 12, whose parents are diligently attempting their education. I have been trying to help too. This is so difficult. The kids are only learning a piece of what they could be learning in person. I witness how socially it is a terrible scenario for young children who need to interact with friends. And who knows the damage of so much time staring at a computer screen. I appreciate the efforts of our teachers. I have seen some amazing patience and creativity, but it still isn't really working. I beg you to apply for a waiver, and I'm disappointed that you haven't done so yet. Please open the schools and let parents choose whether or not to send their children. Kids are at risk of way more than the coronavirus. My daughter-in-law is a nurse who has been working at Doctors Medical Center throughout this ordeal. I think the teachers need to do their job too and get back to work. Thank you, Carol Phillips of Modesto. Our next comment comes from Holly Phillips, a parent. To whom it may concern, I am a mom of 4 children who attend schools in Modesto City Schools District. 3 attend Insulin Elementary and 1 Roosevelt Junior High. My husband and I have tried our best to have positive attitudes for our children during this time of distance learning. But it is time to reconsider that this system is not working for our children. Each of my children have come to me and expressed in moments of despair that Modesto City Schools has taken everything away from them. They are each dealing and coping differently, but all showing signs of stress and anxiety. One of my kids is adopted and unravels every day. His learning is stunted. Please invite our children back to their schools. They need the interaction with their peers and the doting attention of their loving teachers. With my deepest sincerity, Holly Phillips. The next message we have comes from a concerned parent also. In one moment, I need to bring this up on a different device. This is a parent named Sarah Cromwell. She reads, "My name is Sarah Cromwell, and I have 2 daughters that attend Modesto High, 9th and 11th. I wanted you to know how frustrated I am with all the technology issues that Modesto City Schools has been having. From day one, it has been nonstop issues, one after another. My junior has at least 14 different programs and apps that she's required to use to turn in work and assignments. She didn't have access to 2 of the programs until last week. We have been to the site on Reno twice and have made over 20 calls to the technology line, trying to get her access to all required programs. For it to take 4 weeks to get access is unacceptable. She is failing classes because she was unable to turn in her work. Her teachers have been great to work with regarding the missing assignments and letting her turn in late work, as they understand it is not her fault. Not only has she had issues with not having access to programs, both girls many times are unable to log into classes, or once in classes get booted out in the middle of class. My junior has taken IB classes and was valedictorian for her junior high school, and her grades now are horrible. This has caused stress and anxiety as she is worried how this will impact her college acceptance. Kids need to be in school. Distance learning is not working. You are failing our children." Our next message comes from Stacy Sharer, a parent. "Dear Modesto City Schools, distance learning has been a nightmare for my child. I have a child who has just started 9th grade and is in resource. It is impossible to give him the accommodations he legally has set up through a computer. It is completely impeding his ability to learn. He is stressed out and depressed. I am not equipped to be a teacher, and as of now, I have to try to read and teach him everything at home after I get off work. This feels like it is against the law and our rights for our children to have a good education. My son cannot read yet and is expected to do learning on a computer where some teachers are not even teaching, just putting materials to read on their own in Schoology. If Modesto Cities does not apply for a waiver and try to get back into the classroom, we will be switching to private school. Thank you, Stacy Sharer." Next message is from James and Nafe Reese. "Dear Board, I'm a stay-at-home parent of 4 children that all attend schools within the Modesto City Schools District. One is in elementary, 2 at junior high, and 1 in high school. Distance learning has been a daily struggle due to technology issues and lack of uniformity amongst teachers. I also suspect that our children will not adequately get through the necessary curriculum through distance learning. Our children's education is suffering from the lack of in-person and one-on-one instruction. It is my hope that the schools open soon. We are ready and willing to get our children back into the classroom as soon as you open up. We understand that there are risks associated with reopening. However, the impact that distance learning is having on many children's education, health, and well-being does not seem to be a big enough part of the conversation. We are wondering why the Modesto City Schools Board was not prepared sooner to submit the waiver. Guidelines have been out since August 3rd, and it would seem that Modesto City Schools would have more resources than many of the smaller districts that have already successfully completed the process. One of the issues that was raised at the last board meeting was regarding how to pay and perform all the required testing. Has the board been collaborating with other districts for some of the more challenging aspects of the waiver process. We look forward to more communication from the board. Thank you for your time. James and Nafi Reese. The next message is from Lisa Armour. To whom it may concern, please do what you need to for the school board to submit a waiver for our schools to open. You are losing the faith of our families, and people will be leaving the public schools to do their own thing because you're failing us if you continue to keep the schools closed. The kids who need to be in school the most are suffering and falling further behind. The threat of COVID needing in our schools to remain closed is unconvincing. Stop ignoring the reality of what's best for the most amount of people and open schools with precautions in place. Thank you, Lisa Armour, parent of a 4th and 2nd grader. The next message comes from Paul and Renee Pratt. Hello, I have 4 students enrolled in Modesto City Schools. They are all in honors and AP level courses. This year has been such a disappointment so far, as they are learning far less than the required amount for those level courses. It is not possible in this online format to get the necessary content covered. Then you add in all the days where technical difficulties have kept them from connecting at all, and we have bored kids across our district wasting time in front of blank screens. Our county has the same exact number of positive cases as we did last Friday. Why are we not submitting our waiver to get these kids back in school? This virus has very little impact on school-age kids at all, so let's get them back in the classroom. If a teacher is concerned or has underlying health issues, keep them at home, online, with the MVA students. What do we as parents need to do to send the message loud and clear enough that we want our kids back in school? We are connected with at least 100 families across the district that we have texted with throughout these first 7 weeks of school, and no one is happy with the performance level of the distance learning. We have a lot of frustrated parents, bored and depressed kids, and many teachers who also want to get back into the classrooms. It is time to move forward. Thank you, Renee Pratt. The next message comes from Victoria Bossier, MCS Board of Supervisors. My name is Victoria Bossier, and my daughter is in the 4th grade at Insulin Elementary. I would first like to thank our teachers for all of their hard work on creating an online curriculum for our children during this time. As much as they exceeded my expectations in the virtual world, my child does not need to be in front of a computer for her entire school day anymore. Our schools need to be reopened. If I can go to the mall and get my hair done in a salon, if I can go to the mall and get my hair done in a salon, then these children can go back to school. The school district should have been doing everything possible for our kids to return this fall to a safe environment. We're going into October, and this is unacceptable, especially since almost all private schools in the area have already opened their campuses. Please do what needs to be done, whether it be wearing masks in certain parts of the school, having sanitizing stations, or whatever else is on that list in order for us to apply for their waiver. I understand there are concerns and fears, but fears get us nowhere. Give parents the choice if they want to send their children to school or remain online. Give teachers the choice if they want to teach in person or online. Everyone has the right to choose, and keeping these children from seeing each other, interacting, and just having a normal life again is not okay. The next message comes from Nicole Horn. Good evening. I have 2 children in elementary school, and it's been brought to my attention that Modesto City Schools has not submitted a waiver to reopen the schools. I find this very concerning, as this is affecting the well-being of our children. My second grader in particular is having a very hard time with distance learning and needs her teacher and in-person learning to thrive. Not only is it affecting the students, but also working parents who are trying their best to help with the distance learning, but have limited availability and are not teachers. It is not fair that students in this position may fall behind or not get the help they need. I would appreciate better communication with the parents about what the plans are and a more proactive approach to get our children back in the classroom. Thank you, Nicole Horn. And the final comment for this evening comes from Sherry S. Teacher X at Gregory and Teacher Y at Enox appear to be involved in inciting students, pushing the BLM agenda, and possibly a foul word, the police as well. Why is BLM signage allowed in classrooms, but students are removed from class/after school programs based solely, and I have proof, on certain flags they have on their walls in their own home? A very similar situation recently made national news. This district will be next. These teachers need to be investigated. Mother of a student bullied and discriminated against by his teacher based on his conservative views. Sherry S. And those are all the public comments.
Thank you, Ms. Chambers, for reading those for us and sharing them with us. So we appreciate the comments from the public and are glad that you could get in touch with the district today and be able to, so we could have them, even though our technology was having struggles. So I appreciate that. And now we are going on to item B1, the student representative report. So student rep Carson Carranza, you're up.
All right. Hello, everyone. Last Tuesday was our first inter-high council meeting of the year. Every school except Gregory had at least one representative attend our Microsoft Teams call. Despite being online, the ASB leadership programs in our district have been busy catering to the students in trying to make the most of a school year and make it seem as normal as possible. Bayer, Enox, and Johansson are running several Instagram accounts with helpful updates for students for each specific class. Davis was among the first to push out a successful virtual club fair, and several other high schools in our district have followed their example, like Enox and Modesto High. Downey has just finished their ASB elections and started their Downey podcast. They are also preparing to move forward with planning future fundraisers and spirit events. Modesto High is just 1 week away from pushing out a virtual homecoming event, which will include both royalty and a spirit week. On top of all these events and tasks, the leadership programs are still working on bonding through this virtual environment. During our inter-high meeting, Lori Hewlin joined our call and informed us about the district student advisory committee. Inter-high also discussed a possible district-wide service project. The most popular idea in the meeting was to partner with an organization called Reach Out and Read that supplies books to pediatricians in low-income areas and provides those doctors with resources necessary to stress the importance to parents about reading to children. Our service project could be centered around collecting books from students at several high school sites in our district that people are no longer using. Inter-high is looking forward to pursuing this idea and discussing new ideas for a service project as well. Our next inter-high meeting will be held on Microsoft Teams on October 13th. I've been in contact with the school sites and students from several leadership programs to hopefully get more students to attend our meeting. That's all I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Carson. Are there any questions from the board for Carson or comments? Seeing none. Good job, Carson. Thank you for your report and your meeting, your inter-high council meeting. Sounds like lots of good stuff's going on. That's great. All right, now we're going to move on to our item B2, public hearing and approval of resolution number 20/21-06 that Modesto City Schools provides each pupil at TK through 12 traditional sites sufficient textbooks and or instructional materials. And I believe Mr. Rich is going to give this item. So right now, I believe I am going to go ahead and do the it is a public hearing, so we're going to close the regular meeting. So I'm closing the regular meeting. And now I will open a public hearing. All right. So go right ahead, Mr. Rich.
Sorry about that. Good evening, President Marks and trustees, Superintendent Noguchi and Cabinet. Education Code 60119 requires that the Board of Education shall hold a public hearing and shall make a determination through a resolution as to whether each pupil in each school in the district has sufficient textbooks or instructional materials, or both, in each subject area that is consistent with the content and cycles of the curriculum framework adopted by the state board. This must be accomplished prior to the end of the 8th week of school. The district has provided each pupil in the district at a K-12 traditional site with standards-aligned textbooks or basic instructional materials in each of the following areas: history, social science, mathematics, reading, language arts, science, foreign language 712, health 712, and also laboratory science equipment in grades 9 through 12. All 16 sites that were visited by the Williams Act review teams passed their sufficiency checks without any findings reported. All other sites have reported that they have provided pupils with sufficient textbooks and/or instructional materials. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve resolution number 20-21-06 that Modesto City Schools provides each pupil at K-12 traditional sites with sufficient textbooks and/or instructional materials. Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions from any board members? All right, any comments from any public comment? Are there any comments from the public? I don't know who would have that, but
no, there are not.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Chambers. And so there are no comment. Is there any comments now from the board? Okay, I thought maybe Trustee Lopez. I will just make a comment. I know that in the past we have not always had sufficient textbooks, so I'm always appreciative when we have them and they're all available for our students. And I'm glad that we are able to make that available, even if it's not actual physical textbooks, it's through the internet. So thank you. And now I will entertain a motion for the approval of this item. So do I have a motion? Trustee Newman makes a motion. I need a second. Do I have a second from Trustee West? Okay, I see Vice President West. All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand, say aye. All right, let's see if I have all of you. Any opposed? I don't see any opposed. All right, so it looks like we have a unanimous vote, 6-0. And now I will close the public hearing and open the Modesto City Schools Board meeting again. All right, now I'm going on to item B3, approval of the Learning Continuity and Attendance Plan and receipt of Stanislaus County Office of Education Local Educational Agency, LEA, and feedback. So we have Dr. Perez is up to give this item for us. Dr. Perez.
Good evening, President Marks, Board of Trustees, and Superintendent Noguchi. I am here to present now in the final step of the approval of the Learning Continuity and Attendance Plan for Modesto City Schools. In this very brief presentation, I will share the stakeholder feedback impact to the plan and request the approval from the board. So as you recall, this plan was presented on the 8th of September as a public hearing item. The plan summarizes many aspects of the impact of COVID-19 on our school district, and these have been presented to the board in several prior meetings. Feedback from parents, students, and staff has led to the following additional aspects of the plan: that the Modesto Virtual Academy commitment requirement wouldn't be for the entire year, but rather would be changed to the grading period. The student wellness survey was, again, a response to parents, student, and staff. And so that is to increase our awareness and provide supports for mental health for all students. The robust parent and student training websites, again, are in response to public, student, and staff input, and there's a variety of videos, helpful tips, and access to live and recorded online classes, and the learning hubs, which were presented at the previous board meeting, and these have been put in place to support our most at-risk students in safe in-person settings. Additionally to this item was the receipt of the Stanislaus County Office of Education feedback. And I am happy to say that in every single aspect of the plan, the county has deemed that we meet their expectations. And with that, I open this item for board public questions and request your approval.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Perez. And now, if you could turn it back so that the screen is the full screen of the board, so I could see them.
Let me stop sharing 1 second. It is a little different than Teams.
I know, yes, I know. Thank you for adapting. I know, that was awesome. I know it's been a challenge, but thank you on the short notice and being able to figure all this out so we can have this meeting tonight. Okay, so are there any questions from any board members? Trustee Newman.
Thank you, Dr. Perez, for your work on that. And I appreciate the extensive surveys that were done. And I guess I don't really have a question as much as a comment on just how much of our LCAP dollars or our learning continuity plan are being spent on intervention, academic intervention or remediation. We've got over $533 million, and I like the way it's all laid out and what that amounts to. I think it's really important to understand when the students fall behind, it costs us a lot of money to try and get them up to speed. And so it's just important to identify those dollars and how they're being spent.
Thank you, Trustee Newman. Are there any other questions or comments from board members? I don't see any. Okay, so we will go on and find out, are there any comments from the public, from Ms. Chambers?
No, there are no comments on this item.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I will entertain a motion to approve. Let me read it again. Hold on. Let's see. Hold on. It was it had a lot to say. Item B3, approval of the learning continuity and attendance plan and receipt of Stanislaus County Office of Education local educational agency feedback. So do I have a motion from board member? Trustee Newman makes a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second from Trustee Lopez. All those in favor, please raise your hand. I need Mr. Irvin. I can't see you. Mr. Irvin. And I don't see, oh yes, I have everybody but Trustee Irvin. I don't know what to do. So I will say he's absent, is all I know.
With the votes that you have, and then just say he was absent.
Okay, so we will go with, I have a 5 approval and 1 absent vote from Trustee Irvin. All right, moving on to the next item. We will move on to, now we will find out we're on item B7 and approval of the first reading of proposed revision to board policy B5141.52 suicide prevention. Are we able to do that one?
Well, Board President Marks, as you can see, I was able to find Danielle Hinkle. Thank you, Danielle, for joining us tonight. Board President Marks, the only dilemma would be is we do not have the ability to show the board policy up on the screen for edits in the moment. We are more than happy and prepared to move forward and talk about the revisions that were made and the why. But on the flip end of it, we will not be able to show the a board policy update for everybody to see.
Okay, we're going to do our best. We'll do it the old-fashioned way, and we'll just talk about it and then see if we can get it. Okay, so let's go. Thank you, Mr. Herbst and Ms. Hinkle. Thank you.
Ms. Hinkle, take it away.
All right. Well, good evening, Board President Marks, members of the Board of Education, Superintendent Noguchi, and Executive Cabinet and guests. As Mr. Herbst mentioned, I'm here today to bring forward a revision to the suicide prevention policy. As you may recall, we did an extensive overhaul back in March in preparation for our federal program monitoring review. And our first reading tonight displays the final recommendations from our federal program monitoring review, as well as some updates to education code. And we also just cleaned up and tidied up a little bit of the language. So in summary, I know board members have a copy of the policy. If you're looking at the very first page of the policy, areas there, you'll see some language in red. That's just to get our wording in alignment with CSBA's gamut language, and also in alignment with Education Code 215. That really talks about the local partners who were engaged in the review of the policy. And then down at the bottom of the page, we added some language that outlined our new suicide prevention training this year, which was an online training for all of our certificated staff members. And it also discusses, right above that, strategies for students that would be age appropriate at the elementary level. And those strategies would be things like knowing who on your campus you could contact if you were feeling sad or that you needed help, or even if you had a friend who was feeling sad or needed help. Then on page 2, or page A, of the board policy, the second page, again, some additional gamut language. We also included some language about, again, the education and training of staff and who that would be under the direction of. That would be under the direction of the district counselor, who in essence would be me. I'm the one who oversees all the counselors, and I have a PPS credential and am considered a counselor. And that is, again, in alignment with Education Code 215 and a requirement for FPM to have that language in the policy. Then on page B, again, we included some additional CSBA language that is part of Education Code 215 near the bottom of the page. Specifically, that second paragraph is one that we had previously. However, it was located in our administrative regulation and it needed to be moved into the policy itself. Again, that was a recommendation from FPM. Lastly, at the bottom of that page, talks about how the superintendent or designee shall post this policy on the district's website. That is new in Education Code 234.6, so we included that as well. I know that was a very quick summary of the edits and changes, but as I mentioned before, we previously did an overhaul in March, and so these are just the final refinements of this policy. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions on this first reading of Board Policy 5141.52, Suicide Prevention.
Okay, Trustee Irvin.
Yes, I wanted to know, Danielle, I know there's staff development done for staff in terms of the recognition and the warning signs and things like that. Do we offer anything to students, to peers, in terms of doing the same type of being aware and recognizing some of the warning signs and things like that for students?
So I'm happy to share. I don't know if you've heard about this, but actually the California Department of Education just partnered with a program called, or an organization called Living Works. And they just spearheaded a welcome meeting for students all across California. And we shared that out with our students via their classroom teachers that they could join in on this welcome. They're going to be showcasing a new training that is specific for students. And we're working with Stanislaus County Office of Education to be able to provide that to as many of our students as we can. We certainly want to look at our most at-risk youth. Not that all students aren't important, but we certainly have certain groups of students who might be more at risk that we would be really wanting to embrace in that training. Additionally, at the next meeting, I hope you're going to hear about our social emotional survey for students. And in that, there's some work that talks about really helping students to identify who they can go to on their campus if they're needing help and support for themselves or other students.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for those comments and answers. Do I have any other trustees with the question? Trustee Newman?
I appreciate you bringing this forward tonight and proceeding with it, because I know we had talked about it earlier. I also think that in light of the fact that we're engaging in this conversation with our student emotional welfare, I think it's important to have this policy in place and the indication that we're doing the training and the training that we're proceeding with. The other thing is that we've implemented, I think it was last year, that all the student ID cards in at least our high schools have suicide information on the back. I don't know if all the board members know that, but I see our student representative shaking his head, yes. So that picture that we take of all of our students and at some of our school sites, we do require that they wear the lanyard on the student ID, so the information is accessible to them, and so it's important that we have a policy in place, being that the conversation is out there, and we're encouraging our students to talk about this as well. But I agree with Trustee Irvin that if through our health curriculum as we roll that out, I know that we're updating that this year. This is the new health curriculum in our 9th grade, I believe. That we're rolling out some updated provisions right in our health, and nobody's nodding. But some of that material would be available in our 9 through 12 health education. Is that true?
That is part of the health. I mean, I'm not the one overseeing.
It always has been, but
it always has been.
Yeah.
And I would also add, I should have mentioned this previously, we've got some resources on our district website that were part of the other presentation that we moved to the next meeting. But those resources also include the National Suicide Prevention Hotline information, as well as the chat line. And we have a number of schools that are sharing that information out with students via their social media sites as well. And new this year, it's in the AR. I know we're not talking about the AR, but we also included the domestic violence hotline number on the back of the student ID cards as required by Education Code 215.
Great, thank you.
Yes, and I agree with whoever said this was really, we needed to do this tonight, just because I know students we need to have a policy, because our students are in greater need now, even just by addressing some of the comments that were made earlier, that our students are in need of help. And I am on a call with a lot of other board members from around the state, and some of them are facing some really difficult circumstances with their students. And so I'm glad we're working on this tonight, this suicide prevention policy, and just hope that, and it would have been great to have had it with the the other item on, just to know what's happening and the services that are available for our students. But at least we're on this. So do we have any more questions on this policy? Any comments on this policy from the public?
No comments from the public.
Thank you, Ms. Chambers. Okay, so with that, are there any other comments from the board about this? I just had one. I know there's a little typo on page A at the top of the page. It's in the red. It starts with such. I believe that's how it printed on mine, at least. It's the postvention. I think it's supposed to be post-intervention. So it just is right out after intervention and post-intervention. So that was all. But I meant to call and say that, but I forgot. And so if that works, we just had a little typo in there. So with that, I will entertain a motion to approve this policy. Do I have a motion by Trustee West, seconded by, do I have another trustee? Trustee Irvin. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Say aye if you want to. Okay, it looks like it's a unanimous. Any opposed? Unanimous, including Trustee Carranza. And so it's a 6-0 vote. And so I thank you for that. And that moves us on to item B8, the enrollment update. And Mr. Zerly is going to be giving us this, Associate Superintendent Zerly is going to give us this presentation, I believe.
Thank you, President Marks. Good evening, trustees. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
First time using this, so let me get it here. Okay. All right, good evening. Tonight, I'm Tim Zerly, Associate Superintendent of Business Services. And tonight, as we do annually, we're going to provide the board with a report on just an update on our enrollment for the start of the school year. We have that broken down into our K-12 total enrollment, and then we will look at K-8 enrollment overall. We'll look at K school enrollment, and then do the same for our 9-12 enrollment. So for this year, the highlights for our enrollment count. Oh, I skipped. There you go. We do have a 349 student decline from the prior year. 388 of those are from K-8 general education. We had projected a 335 student decline for this year. So it was a little greater than we had projected. However, we are up 428 students at our 9-12 grade levels. And that is 134 student over our projected increase. We're down start of the year, 269 students in our alternative education program. That would be Elliott School. And then we're down 120 special ed students, students with disabilities from the prior year. Carrying on, we are down 110 transitional kindergarten students from last year. That's possibly due to distance learning. We're not quite sure why we're seeing that loss, so we're going to monitor that. Hopefully, we get those students back as first graders. We continue to lose students as we look at our cohort progression of our grade levels. We continue to lose students from grade 6 to grade 7. This year, we lost 91 students. We had as 6th graders last year. We do not have them as 7th graders this year. And then this is just a trend we have. As we exit 8th graders to 9th grade to our high schools, we have smaller incoming kindergarten classes to replace them. This year, the difference between our 8th grade promotions to 9th grade and our incoming kindergarten students was 222. So that's a large difference between what we're exiting out as 8th graders versus bringing in as kindergartners. Want to end on a positive note. We have a 189 student increase in the inter-district transfer deficits. We've talked about that a lot in the past couple of years since Dr. Noguchi has got here. We're proud to report these numbers. We have 423 less requests of transfers out of our district than we had just the prior year. And we have 234 less requests to come into Modesto City Schools. So that's 189 student increase to our inter-district transfer deficit that we've been talking about for a couple of years. Just looking at our enrollment on a graph, you can see the trends and you can see the special education numbers on the top and how we have less special education students identified this year as we've had in the past. And then you can see the high school represents the gray bar in the middle and the elementary, the blue bar at the bottom. High school has stayed pretty steady throughout the course of this graph. Looking at our enrollment history again, and this just is K-8 total enrollment, which does include our SDC pupils. Those are noted on top in the gray section of this graph, and you can see how the trend is downward in our K-8 enrollment the last couple of years. Looking at our school enrollment, this is just something it may be hard to see on your screen, but this just shows you year over year our school enrollment. You can see which schools last year was in the blue, this year is in the gray. You can see which ones gained students and which ones lost students year over year. And this is the second part of our K-6 school enrollment. Same look at 7-8. We had some minimal losses at our schools. La Loma actually went up, but the biggest loss we saw was at Roosevelt in year over year. Just looking at student numbers from last year to this year, when you're looking at our junior high schools, Roosevelt was the one that we had the most loss on. 9-12 enrollment, again, going back to 13-14, just looking at the trend line, you can see it's pretty stable over the course of this graph. You've got your special needs students on the top, alternative education in the gray, the second piece, and then the general education high school students are in the blue at the bottom. And again, you can see this year over last year, a loss in alternative education students, or alternative education students are identified in the general education program at this point versus at this point in time last year. The same look at the individual schools. You can see the high schools where we gained, where we lost year over year. Davis was the big winner this year versus last year. That's good to see. Davis enrollment back over 2,000. That's exciting to see the students returning to Davis High School. And then you see Elliott in the middle. You see the difference, 629 students at the same reporting time a year ago, 361 for this year. And with that, I will entertain any questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Zerly. Are there any questions from the board? I have Trustee West.
Thank you. Just a quick question, Mr. Zierli. The TKK decline, I know you had mentioned it's possibly from due to going to distance learning. From what I've been reading, that's kind of statewide, though, isn't it? Isn't this a trend that we're seeing all across the state?
Absolutely, that's a trend. As you and most people know, kindergarten, I guess, is not required, and so there was a thought that parents would do something else with their kindergarten age students, and it looks like that is happening. Not only Modesto City Schools, the majority of my colleagues that I talk to in surrounding districts throughout the valley are seeing the same thing with their TK and K numbers for this year.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Trustee Brown?
Yes, I just wanted to reiterate, it appears that the Modesto Virtual Academy students are counted within the students at their attendance area. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Any other questions? Let's see, I had one. I wanted to know, do we know where the students went that were at Elliott, that 300 students?
Maybe Brad could answer that question. I'm not sure they went anywhere. The way students get transferred to Elliott is timing wise, and I'm not sure where we're at in the process this year. I don't know if Brad, you have any light you can shed on that or not.
Yeah, Senior Director Rachel Barkas and I were looking at that last week. We are researching what the decline in enrollment at Elliott is due to. We have changed some of our processes or revised some of our processes around which students are a good fit, we'll call it, at Elliott, and ensuring that we've got the best programs to serve students in need. And so we're looking at all of that. So I don't have a real answer for you tonight, Board President Marks, but we are looking to see what the possible impact of that decline is due to.
Okay, yeah, because it was significant. It's half the school. So, and I just wanted to know because it was a significant amount of students. So thank you. I look forward to hearing that report.
We can put that in a board communication for you when we get to the bottom of that this week and get it out to the board on Friday.
Okay, that's great. Yes. And I know that in the past we were able to track where students went, which schools they went to, if they went to a private school or charter school or were homeschooled. So I know that in the past that's been some of the information that we were able to gather, not necessarily in September, but when we saw that our declining enrollment, wanted to know where the students were going. And so I just wanted to find that out. Did you have something, Brad?
Yeah, I was just going to add to that, not the vast majority, but the majority of students at Elliott are seniors, followed up by juniors. And so as we graduate students out of Elliott, that drops the enrollment year over year. And so it could be that we're still transitioning students there. So there's a few different reasons that might be for, but we'll get that into it.
Yeah, and I can see the timing, and if students were struggling in the environment at the school that they were, and they wanted to go to Elliott, because I know a lot of the students that I've talked to when I go there, they've selected that school as a place they want to be because it's a smaller campus. There's certain ways they like to learn. The day is shorter than some other schools, or they have options, especially if they have a job. So I know there's a lot of reasons why students choose to go to Elliott. And so that's where I was wondering what happened, but that's great. I'm glad that they're graduating too. And it's fun to do those graduations. I know some of them have overcome a lot to be able to graduate. So that's great. All right. Thank you. I don't see any other hands up Trustee Irvin.
Yes, I just wanted to ask about the Elliott situation. Do we know that, and this is probably district-wide, are we anticipating any increases in dropouts due to this, the pandemic and the lack of being able to be, students being able to engage in the classroom, getting frustrated with the virtual learning? Because as we heard with parents, and I know many of the trustees have been approached by other parents that their kids are not getting it, and it's across the spectrum from AP kids to kids in IB programs to kids across the board are not being able to adapt, so to speak, to the new virtual environment. Are we keeping eyes on, say, okay, this is not due to the drop, students dropping out, or we be able to capture that at this moment? It is something that we can capture live in terms of students not engaged in the process, in the educational process because of that.
Something that I'll add, and then I'll let Mr. Godot add additionally. Last spring, we had the same issues and the same concerns, and that many of the kids were falling through the cracks, and our graduation rate was going to plummet, and our dropout rate was going to expand. And we actually held our own. We didn't. Our graduation rate stayed exactly the same last year, and actually dropouts, we were able to find additional kids from dropping out, and actually we decreased the dropout rate last spring. I do know that we have an engagement plan such that if kids are not, and Brad can certainly speak to this, we track them on the daily basis, and if they don't show up for 2 consecutive days, we're calling and we're knocking on the door. I do recognize there are a lot of parents and a lot of students that are very frustrated with the work and the structure of distance learning. But I also recognize there are a lot of students that are being successful in this format. So while I can appreciate your comments, Trustee Irvin, I don't want it to reflect that it's all negative, because we just heard, quite a few very disgruntled parents calling that out. I do know that there's another side to this as well. With that said, we absolutely want to get all of our kids back to school as soon as we possibly can. I am definitely committed to that and working with you all in getting that moved forward. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Godot relative to the engagement plan and really the work that we've put in to ensure that we've identified those kids that, one, are not coming to school, and all the different resources we have in our, what do we call it? It's kind of like a task force to go out and knock on doors and call and do that work. So I do know that Mr. Herp and his team are working on that as well.
Right. Yeah. And I just want to point out, I was alluding more to, what is our safety net for the exceptions? I know the rule is, most of our students are, progressing and things like that, but anything with something new, we need to be prepared for those. We used to have a safety net for those that need it,
Yes, absolutely. Mr. Herb, can you speak to that? Because I know you're working with the learning hubs, which I don't know that the board is familiar with that work, and it will extend out to high school as well.
Yeah, the learning hubs. Well, we did do a board presentation on learning hubs last board meeting, and just as a reminder, those continue to open from a week-to-week basis, including at the high school. So right now we have them over at Johansson, Modesto High School, Davis High School, and they continue to go every other day. We're opening up a learning hub. The other piece that I think is important to note is we really looked at some of the staff members that perhaps due to distance learning did not have the same level of work. And I'll just give you a good example, the intervention center teachers. Dave Houck's done a nice job in working with those teachers to begin to work with our tier 3 kids that are at risk, kids that are struggling, logging in and working out and reaching out to those kids, including going so far as to work on them with academic skills in their class, much like what would happen if by chance they were in an intervention center, were placed in the intervention center during a brick and mortar type situation. So it really is, Trustee Irvin, an all hands on deck type approach. Pleased with the work that we're doing, definitely pleased with the work we're doing with the learning hubs, but also using our available staff to really hit some of those kids that you're referring to.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, I don't see any other hands raised or comments. That concludes the report. And now that we will move on to items to be placed on future agendas. Do I have any items from board members that wish to place any items on future board agendas? All right, then just as a reminder, we are having a workshop on October 12th, and we will be discussing our next steps and opening schools, and then we will have a regular board meeting. I forgot the date of it, but 2 weeks after that.
It's the next week after. So
the next week. Okay, that's right. It's the next week after the 12th. Okay, so it must be the 18th or 19th. So, all right. So I will entertain a motion to close the meeting. Do I have a motion? By Trustee Newman. I see a second by, do I have a second? I see, they went up at the same time. I'll take Trustee Brown. So thank you so much. And all those in favor, raise your hand to close the meeting. Okay, it looks like unanimous vote. Any opposed? I don't think so. All right, meeting's been adjourned. Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you, staff, for all your hard work to make this happen tonight and all those that got it online. Have a great rest of your evening. Take care. Bye.